Hi, good morning. Once again, I'm Dr. Sise. As all I've promised, I'm going to be doing series of videos that will focus on how to prevent mental illnesses. For those of you who've been following me, I've talked about a few things. I've discussed about depression. I've discussed about anxiety. Today's video will focus on anger and how do we prevent anger. Now, we are going to talk about anger as a pathological problem. Most people don't understand that anger is a neuropathological disorder. And therefore, we need to discuss about it so people understand it. And when people understand it, my thinking is they will be able to do something about it before it go out of hand to put them into serious issues. But before I get into the video, I'd like to say that these videos has no role in connection to my particular clinical role in my workplace. This is to provide a basic knowledge. As a result of that, I'm not going to go too much into biology or neurobiology of these disorders or illnesses. So I'm do as much as in my ability to discuss these illnesses in a simple terms that are friendly words that people can understand from it. Now, before we discuss anger or aggression as a mental health illnesses or disorder, it has not been put into category of ICD-10 or DSM-5. However, it has been identified by many clinicians as a disorder, and we will discuss this in detail when we look into a little bit into neurobiology. But before we get into that, I'd like you to understand there is a difference between anger or aggression with irritability and sadness. And the difference are really massively different because these three phenomenon, they act on different sockets or different pathway in the brain or in the nervous system. So what I'm going to do at this stage is just to give a little bit summary of your nervous system and then look at the brain area where this anger is believed to be the problem. So therefore I'm going to go onto the board and I'm going to start looking into a little bit of writing. So we have our nervous system. In the nervous system, most people will know that it's divided into two, which is you got your peripheral nervous system and you got your central nervous system. We know that your peripheral nervous system is also divided into your autonomic nervous system and your somatic nervous system. Now we know that your somatic nervous system is also divided into two. We call it a sensory nervous system, your sensory neurons and your motor neurons. Now we know that your autonomic nervous system in basic anatomy and physiology divided into two, but actually it's divided into three. You got your enteric nervous system. Your enteric nervous system is a nervous system in your gut that help you digest your food, movement of your food. We call it peristalsis, and the movement of fluid, your lymph fluid, and all that bit. So it's under an autonomic nervous system control, and you got your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. Now this is the classic classification of your nervous system. Now, when you come to your central nervous system, you have your brain. Say this is your brain. In the brain here, you got this little bit, which is your brainstem, and then this bit or that bit is called your cerebellum, and this big bit is called your cerebrum. Now this is your cortex. Now this is the, as I said earlier in my previous, this is the main difference between animals and human beings, because we develop, this bit is so developed with us. Now the reason why I put this down, because I just want to make you aware that when you are sad, sadness happens in your brain. Now that's part of your brain, part of your brainstem, you called the amygdala and then hippocampus. Now this amygdala and hippocampus is a strong belief or school of thought that believe that they are responsible for your sadness. And now I'm gonna tell you, because sadness and anger completely different, as well as irritability. So you got sadness, anger or agitation, and irritability. Now your sadness, what happens, say for example, you are traveling in public transport. Now you're traveling this public transport and you get to your destination and you come off this public transport, say it's a train going to London, and you drop yourself at Wolverhampton. When you come out of the train station, by the time you get to Wolverhampton town center, you realize that you drop your phone in the train, which is going to London. Now, I want you to take a moment and think what happened at that particular stage. What happened at that particular stage? You feel a state of sadness. Now, sadness is a very brief, we call it a brief synchronization, excessive synchronization between your hippocampus and amygdala. Now, when we talk about excessive synchronization, we mean excessive information passage, connectability, between these two part of the brain. It falls into that state of sadness, and it usually has a short window. Sometimes it may not be, and it can develop to a point where it affects other part of the brain, where you develop depression or anxiety. But we're not going to go into that. I'm just going to tell you why sadness and anger are completely different. People misunderstood, thinking that when you're sad, you are angry. No, it's not true. People think that when you're irritable, you are sad or you're angry. No, it's not true. Now, your irritability pathway fall into what is called the arousal pathway. You can call it pathway, or you can call it the arousal balance system. Now, what happened in the arousal balance system? It falls into your autonomic nervous system, and it deals with your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Now, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, you will know that the parasympathetic nervous system calms things. It's a calmer. Sympathetic nervous system is an alerter. It alerts you. It makes you, being readiness. Now, if you are sitting in a balance, this is your sympathetic nervous system, this is a parasympathetic nervous system, and your parasympathetic nervous system goes all this way up and drop your sympathetic nervous system, you will be in a state of irritability. Okay? And then that can actually make you stressful. And then there is levels that you can measure this stress, irritability or stress level. And when you drop down, you get into drowsiness to coma. when the parasympathetic nervous system really go down, down, down. Not only will you be calm when you're in the balance, alertness and calmness. This is a state of harmony. I'm going a little bit on top, but it's good to get this basic information right. So this level of harmony can drop down, can go a different way. If you move up to this side, you're going towards a crazy state. Not when I say crazy, not crazy clinically. I'm talking about again into a stress and irritability pathway. If you're going down this way, you're going down to a low sort of drowsy, and before you know, you get into calmer state, and that's not what everybody wants. But I want you to understand that irritability or stress pathway fall into the arousal pathway. Now we're gonna talk about anger, and that's the main topic today. Now anger fall into context. There is two types of anger that we need to talk about. An anger called an adaptive anger, and there's an anger called an provocative anger. Now the adaptive anger fall into a pathway called the dopaminic pathway. Now we have talked about the PHA, when your medulla sends messages to your HPA, hippocampus, the pituitary gland, the adrenal glands, and produce those stress hormones and all that bit. So your dopaminic pathway is literally making your body ready to do things. So what happens when you are into an adaptive anger? Let me rub up this board a little bit, because you get the basic message now. Now, the adaptive anger is an anger that most animals have, say particularly modern animals. Mothers have can develop an adaptive anger. Now, this is not pathological. Adaptive anger or aggression is not pathological. It's not disease state. So this is not an illness. It's like you take your child to a park, and then before you know, a stranger just come and snatch your child and start running with your child. So this system gets activated. Your dopaminic pathway get activated. So what happened, that sent messages straight to your brainstem, called me the medulla oblongata. We have talked about that pathway that make you to defend and attack whoever that person is, to get rid of the threat. So it's your survival threat, your survival chemical, your survival pathway. So this is healthy. This is not pathological. Now, what is pathological is your unprovoked aggression or anger. Now, this is an illness. This is an illness. Unprovoked aggression. Now, what happened in unprovoked aggression is that there is a pathway, we call it your testosterone and estrogen aromatization. So your testosterone and estrogen aromatization, which means that that is part of your brain. In the brain here, when you look at that big brain, this small big part of it called the midbrain, the brainstem. In the brainstem, there is a little part here, we call it the hypothalamus. Now, the hypothalamus has a massive role in activating this unprovoked aggression. Now, part of the hypothalamus, there is a part in the hypothalamus called the VMH. Now, the VMH stands for ventral medial hypothalamus. This ventral medial hypothalamus is an area in the hypothalamus that has roughly about 3,000 neurons. It's believed that it has about 3,000 neurons, and then like 1,500 one side, 1,500 the other side. But what happened? The beauty of this particular part of this hypothalamus is the fact that it has this process happening there, this testosterone estrogen aromatization. And what that means that your testosterone we know you can teach somebody to be aggressive. So what you do is to try to increase this testosterone level in their body. So people who do athletic stuff like running, fighting, whatever it is, they tend to have these to make them perform far better than their natural state. So, but that is a good healthy part of it. But when this is converted to that, so they say that it's a receptor that it attaches itself. We call it estrogen receptor neurons. When it activated this receptor, these neurons are the actual ones that cause this aggression. So your estrogen receptor neurons get activated, and when they get activated, it automatically make you crazily mad. You become unproductively aggressive. Now, aggression, as I've already explained all this, the idea of this is for you to get some basic knowledge. Now you understand that it is not somebody's personal desire to be aggressive. It's not a behavior. People think that it's aggressive because this is the way he wants to be. It's a pathological condition. It's an illness. So if you have a relative, a friend, a child, a husband, or a wife who has this pathological, uncontrollable aggression, we call it a tantrum, a temper tantrum. Your temper, your anger is absolutely crazy without any reasons. It's an illness. And if you don't control that, it affects the individual holistically. And when we talk about holistically, it affects your performances. Economically, it affects your relationship, it affects your health. Because once you get to that level of pathological anger, everything's sorted. So it affects your appetite, it affects your sleep, it affects your relationship, it affects your everything else, it affects you holistically. And it's important to know that, because if you remain to stay in that state, you are causing more damage to yourself. You're causing more damage to people who love you. You're causing more damage to your organization. You're causing more damage to your colleagues who work with you, because you're affecting work performances. You will never be civil in your workplace. Civil means try to treat people with respect and values. So your moral value is literally swept off on the floor. You will not be a person who will have this ability to observe moral values. You will be a person who will not recognize anybody's right. You don't seem to care about anything about anybody. Not only are you selfish, you are acting as an animal. You're not thinking right, you're not acting right, you're not doing right, you don't care, and you became literally an animal walking. So therefore, it's good to understand that it is not a behavior. Some people call, it's a psychopath, it's a sociopath. Those are terminology, will come to that some point in time, but it is not. It's a pathological disease. This is an illness. It needs to be addressed. If you have this, to prevent it or to deal with it, the best way, first of all, is to seek help. Seek help. You need to seek help, professional help. Because for somebody to assess you, to determine that you are having a pathological anger or aggression, It's difficult because sometimes this particular pathway can be a symptomology for many mental health diseases, particularly when it comes to functional mental health illnesses such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, schizoaffective disorder. You will realize that this anger, aggression is part of the symptomology of all those diseases. So you realize that those diseases will also involve this hypothalamus pathway. But as a condition, a disease, an illness itself, anger is not a behavior. Anger is not a choice somebody make. It is a pathological disorder, and it happens through aromatization of your testosterone and estrogen going through your ER and your testosterone receptor neurons. Those are the ones that activate those cell areas, those neurons around that area, causing you to go fire up like a mad person. You get this tantrum of temper. That's what we call a tantrum of temper. Your temper, your anger, is uncontrollable. Now, to come to the preventive part of it, first thing you do, we understand this whole brain circuit system, or we have some idea about it. Now, if you have some idea about it, where anger originated, first thing you have to ask yourself, is this an adaptive anger? As I said earlier on, you put your anger into context. If it is an adaptive anger, it is not an illness. It is a way of defending your values. Everybody has a value. Everybody will have a safety net. So anytime those are threatening, we do whatever it takes to put those in place. It's like a weed in your garden. If you don't take care of them, they take care of your garden. So that is that. So you need to seek professional help so you can understand what is happening into your system. But another thing you could have done is actually be a person who understands that something is not right. Because some people who are angry don't actually understand that they are angry until their anger led them to do something significantly harmful to somebody without intention. And it can happen exactly, very, very simple. You can abuse people without actually having an intention to abuse them. And part of this abuse can be any form of abuse, particularly physical and emotional abuse. It's very, very common to people who fall into this trap, who get this problem. You can simply abuse people emotionally by insulting them, by telling them things that cause problem for them. Emotionally doesn't necessarily mean only insulting them. You are dehumanizing them. Your body expressions are telling somebody how you feel about them. You're making people uncomfortable around you. Those are all emotional form of abuse. You can create a physical abuse to people, physically hitting people to release those feelings that make you do that anger, temper tantrum problems, to make you feel satisfied. So you need to be really, really vigilant with this problem and really work hard on it, because the impact of that is holistic. It affects you socially, financially, spiritually. And if you don't take care of it, two things happens. Either somebody damage you, or you end up being in prison. Because that's what happened. Or you end up losing your loved ones. So you can either lose your wife or your partner or your child because you cannot control your anger, or you don't feel like controlling, going for help to manage your anger. Or you can do something stupid that will end up you being behind bars in prison for the rest of your life. Or you can emotionally affect somebody and dehumanize them in such a level and degree, you will affect that person's whole life. So the choice is yours. Make a choice. Make a choice. Understand that this syndrome of Tamba is a pathological condition. It's not a behavior. It's not because you are a man lion. You're not a man lion. Nobody is a man lion. Forget about that. Human beings meant to be nice. Human beings meant to have morals. Human beings meant to be civil. Human beings meant to promote respect for others. Promote other safety around you. Promote love. Promote kindness. That's human nature. If your nature is against that, something is wrong. And you need to find solution to that problem. It's your responsibility. Your responsibility, no one else's responsibility. Stop the blaming game. I'm angry because my wife is doing that, my partner is doing that, my child are not going to school, my child is going out with it. That is not the problem. You are the problem. Stop blaming people. Blame yourself and take responsibility. Deal with the problem. And I thank you for listening. If you can take any message from this video, take the message that stop blaming yourself, stop blaming any other person. Understand that when you have this anger tantrum, this aggressive behavior, it is a pathological disorder. It is a disease of your brain. It's a disorder of your brain. And you need to seek help. You need to see a professional to help you deal with it. In the meantime, you can do self-help. But try to engage yourself in doing good. Try to increase your level of meditation. Try to increase your level of exercise so that your aggression go into an inanimate objects. Try to understand what is going on with you. Please take these messages. Use these skills that you have learned, I've talked about. Understand this basic information. It will help you. It will help you to love your loved ones. It will help you to build a strong, positive relationship with your children, with your partners or your wives, with your family, with your friends. It will help you to be civil. It will help you to be kind. It will help you to maintain those lovely virtues. Thank you so much for listening.